Our next session is with a tech panel. We've got the executives we got a co-founder of Street Text over here, Steve Whiting. We've got AJ Honasheri. Well done. Not bad. Okay.
Yeah, very good.
From Curve Hero, and we have the CEO of RedX here today. And yeah, that's a killer panel. So today we're going to really talk about leveraging tech into better experiences and better outcomes at your open houses. Markets are shifting across the country, so we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to not only have our sellers happy, getting the house sold, getting traffic into the house, but also leveraging the outcomes as we get leads out of the open house to get the house full of neighbors, buyer leads, etc. So without further ado, I kind of want to go in and talk about what shifts you guys have seen already in the thousands of agents you guys all work with and deal with. What shifts have you guys seen in your clients you've talked to around open houses, even as we exit kind of summer, head towards fall and winter? What have you noticed so far?
So, we've seen a lot of shifts. I think at a macro level, we see this is my 20th year in this industry. So, we've seen quite a few shifts, and we're seeing the same thing that we saw, the last time things got tough, where people go back to traditional lead gen strategies.
What do you mean by traditional?
So, prospecting.
Okay.
Right. Hunting. Going out and getting it.
Okay.
The mediums might be different. We might be adding in digital and some of the other things. But so we've seen a huge shift in the amount of people doing open houses. The big lawsuit that changed that too. Buyers agency agreements and people going through and meeting buyers at the home. So that's a pretty big strategy for a lot of teams we work with.
Okay. Now, AJ, I mean, your project you built is essentially for open house, right? So what have you noticed, if you dive into some of the numbers or the metrics behind the scenes, what have you noticed or seen with traffic or registrations or the questions that the buyers are answering when they jump into the open house? What have you seen as far as trends go recently?
Yeah, so definitely more days on market, more conversations to have with the seller, and as open houses are happening, being able to report on the activity along with showings and everything else you're reporting to the seller. So keeping track of all that information and being able to convey that to your seller on a weekly basis, as opposed to maybe them having to chase that information from you. That's definitely important. And also just using the open house as a way to just kind of show how you do business. A couple weeks ago, Rory, who's in the audience over there, did a webinar with Elena, and he laid out it's a full-blown masterclass on how he treats a listing and uses the open houses for that listing to get a new seller. And his goal is to get one new listing and 2 buyers out of it. And he just has and the cool thing is it's not just one thing.
Yep.
It's kind of stacking a lot of slight edges together to really make it outcome.
Yeah, I mean, one listing should turn into multiple opportunities, and like you said, Rory's kind of perfected that, right? Yeah, cool. Steve, what have you seen? I mean, you guys run a ton of ads, a ton of marketing for agents and with agents. I mean, what have you seen with open house traffic, that sort of stuff?
Yeah, well, the traffic's good. You guys can hear me as well? Yeah. I would just say, like, the general theme is a listing is sticking around longer, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. When the market was hot and they're flying off the shelf and you can't even put an ad behind it, you can't get any leads. Now the listing's a little longer. So I would say if you're doing an open house, just make sure that you're advertising it, get people to it. If you've got it a little longer, make sure that, rather than pulling the listing off right away, keep it going a little longer, maybe lower your budget. I'm obviously on the ad side, so that's how I think about it. But I look at it as you get actually a little bit more time to leverage your listings right now and get that market share and that exposure as well.
Yeah. And I was actually the next question I had was, give us a recent example of someone who crushed it recently with an open house. I think you started touching on it with Rory's strategy, which ties back into the webinar we did last week. Any other examples you guys have heard from clients that have dominated a recent open house?
Yeah, so one of our clients, a guy named AJ Hazy, he uses this strategy to list probably between 1 to 2 listings a day. And so what he does is, he'll do open house and he'll do a listing ad, and he has a certain amount of budget he puts behind it. And then at the end of that, his kind of like initial budget, he significantly lowers the budget and puts it in a bundle of listings that he has, like a bundle of 10 listings, and he rotates them, which I can talk about in a minute. So the reason the strategy is so effective for him is that the first thing is that when a seller sees the listing come out initially, they're always going to like it, right? They always do, because they see it, they see their house for sale and they like it. So when he's got that listing now that's rotating every few days in a bundle later on, especially if the listing hasn't sold, the seller is always seeing their home for sale. So they're like, oh, Age is still marketing my home, which is huge. The second thing is because he carries between 160 to 200 homes listings, like he's got active, he's got so many leads coming in. And then, and a lot of those leads obviously have homes to sell. And if he had turned off the listing right away when it kind of hit its initial budget, he wouldn't get those ongoing leads that are coming through.
Opportunities.
And then the third part is because he's only spending now $2 a day on this listing and it's rotating every 10 days, it's like so inexpensive to keep it running. And then the last thing is when he goes into a seller presentation, like a listing presentation, and he brings up his Facebook page and he shows all the listings he's running and what he's doing, and he brings up his competitors' Facebook pages and he shows what they're doing, he just blows them out of the water. So that's been his strategy to crush.
Excellent. Yeah. Excellent. Curtis, so Redx data prospecting tool does geoleads, geofarming. If an agent has an open house this weekend, what could they do with Redx or on their own to, your take on the best way to market that from, say, Tuesday to the weekend or Wednesday through the weekend to kind of, we can talk about door knocking, us, works in its old school. What can we leverage to get traffic in the door?
So first, I would tell the agent you should market your open house longer than that.
Okay.
Because even your ads, take time to warm up. Facebook, Instagram, they want to see things that warm up a little longer than that. But if you only had that amount of time, it's a multi-prong approach. So you would first pull in the 1,000 closest neighbors.
Okay.
And you would get an ad on and target just those people with an ad. The best ad is a video in a recognizable area of the neighborhood because then it's going to be relevant to anybody that lives.
You're talking about pulling 1,000 on a radius. You could use Redx, you could use Tidal, you get the data from somewhere, and then run an ad for the open house to those people, and then use a video of a landmark that they would recognize, not the house, but something on the corner of the park or whatever it might be, that they would instantly pick up and grab.
Yep,
Got it.
Yep, common street sign. Because you want to break through the noise. Forbes right now says that in America, we're exposed to between 6,000 and 10,000 advertisements per day.
So there was a guy that spoke on Tuesday at Unlock, and he is one of the brand directors for Ryan Reynolds' ad agency that did like the viral
Mint
ad
Mobile.
for what's it called?
Mint Mobile.
No. This one was the ad on the astronomer, the Gwyneth Paltrow ad that came out, and he said the same thing. He said he was more like 10 to 15,000 ads and marketing messages every single day. So it's right to what you said.
So the most relevant ads are something that's going to be relevant to the people, right? And so a street sign that everybody drives by, that way they slow down their scroll, they're going to see it.
Oh, it's Catella.
Yeah. And so then you're inviting them to the open house. I would take the nearest 200 people and I would call them.
Okay.
Right. And let them know that you're having an open house. My favorite script is, we just want to let you know this is just informational call. I want to let you know we're having an open house. I want to apologize early for the amount of traffic that we'll have in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Right. And then people are like, well, why is there going to be lots of traffic in the neighborhood? Well, because, you live in a hot neighborhood, you should come see.
Yep.
And statistically, that people move within 10 minutes of their friends, family, or coworkers. And so the likelihood that the buyer of that home is going to be a referral from someone in the neighborhood is, very, very likely.
Well, for you, friend, cousin, brother.
Yeah.
Right.
Not to mention all of the other, you're trying to get other buyers, you're trying to get listings. And then I would even, for very low costs, for, 80 cents a piece, you could send a postcard to the nearest, 25, 30, 50 houses.
So you're talking about a long-term marketing approach for a single open house. So what is your then ideal? Okay, open house is in 2 days.
Yep.
Okay. When would you ideally have started the marketing for that open house?
At least 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
How would you, and this might be getting in the weeds here, if the house is just hitting the market, I guess you're just coming soon, what strategically would you do to kind of get that promoted when you're not technically allowed to?
So look, this gets into a lot of different strategy of I'm not saying you should break rules.
Of course.
I am saying though that with a targeted message,
Okay.
the timing is less relevant. Okay. Right? Because if it's the first Saturday it goes on the market or the third Saturday it goes on the market, it's not as relevant because you're not out it's not about setting up 50 signs around the neighborhood. These are targeted to the neighborhood. And when it's hyper local and it's highly targeted with the right message to the people,
Yep.
Your show rate is what matters in the end.
Yep.
And we're seeing people that are in small towns and they're getting 25 people come through an open house in this market, and even though the house is going to sit for 90 days anyway.
Right.
And so with the right marketing, the right message, having an open house 3 weeks out is not a big deal. And the 3 weeks is really just about your digital, right? Or 2 weeks out is really just about your digital. Postcards can get sent within a few days.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And your calls are going to be, hey, this Saturday. So if you only have a few days, making the phone calls matters.
Yep.
Whether that's you or an ISA or an assistant or whatever, it's an informational call. So they don't need to be licensed or anything.
Yep.
But the more you can get the message out directly to the neighbors, the more people are going to come to the open house, the more leads you're going to generate, not to mention possibly finding the buyer for the home.
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Steve, so you guys are right in the ad space between ads and automation and trying to get the word out across all the channels. So what are the recent ad angles or marketing strategies in your platform or Facebook more broadly and even Google a little bit that are working?
Do you mind if it'll take a minute to explain it?
Please.
Okay, sure.
Please.
So it's not nothing really revolutionary, but I mean, this is what we're seeing work really well is you would create a listing lead ad and an open house lead ad. And for the listing, you would do an image of 3 different images of the house. You can use Canva for that. And for the open house, we just found that one image by itself is really good. And then you would do
No matter where which picture is it, exterior, interior, or just the
exterior. It has to be exterior.
exterior house specifically?
Yeah, 100%. It's actually crazy. The interior shots do not work on. It's wild. So yeah, definitely use an exterior. And then you would do you would drop a pin or do a target around the.
Hold on. You went really fast there. Exterior shot specifically, interior does not work. And you guys have seen that across.
They do not work.
Thousands of.
But you'll get it'll work, but you'll pay a lot more. I don't know what it is about it, but the exterior just,
That's an important.
I think it's actually to your point of like a landmark. Is like if you see something that looks familiar, it'll stop the scroll, but an interior shot could just be anybody's house or anything, or just, So anyways,
There's some pretty weird rooms in some houses.
I'm sure there would be some that would stop the scroll. So you got your radius, and then what I would do is I would actually create, this is what we see, is like if you create a third video, like it's a Facebook traffic video ad, and then you do a walkthrough of the property or, a voiceover as you're kind of going through it. Then as soon as people are either engaging with the lead ad, the listing ad or the open house ad, now they'll start to see the walkthrough ad. And then for the listing ad, when people engage with it, the first text message should be to them to actually invite them to the open house. So invite them to a coming open house. And then if they don't respond to that, the second message could be, hey, I have a walkthrough. Would you like that? And so that's a great way to engage it. And then for the open house ad, when the first message should be when they engage with that one should actually be to invite them to a list, like a list of all the open houses in the area. That actually works really well. And a lot of people will say, yeah, I'll take that. And if they don't, then you could send another message to let them know that you have a tour of the home if they'd like to see it as well. So that's a strategy that we've been seeing that's working really well with listings and open houses.
Okay, so exterior shot.
Yep.
Few different ad types.
Yep.
When they come in, the first message or 2 is value.
Always.
Please come. Love to see you. Do you want the video? It's not. Do you want to buy the house?
And even
Please come and
open house. Sometimes it's really helpful just to send the address of the open house with a text message as well. And you can even be curious and just ask them, are you able to make it? Let me know. And if they do say yes, then make sure the day of you text them again to remind them.
QR code check-ins, instant sign-ins, the tablet method versus the pen and paper, right? What what automations and what is allowed when you do something like that versus the pen and paper? And I've got an agent on my team, by the way, crushes his open house. Pen and paper, but she does use Curb Hero when they leave and does the rifling through. But talk about the power of automating and leveraging a system to do that for you versus the data entry Monday morning when you come back in and you're already 3 days late and everything else.
Yeah. But I would say that agent on your team is already 1 foot in the door as far they've realized that the leads do belong in the CRM. So they're taking that next step. Now, what would be a big time saver is just having people enter it right directly during the open house. So one thing, a lot of agents will choose between a vibes-based get your information conversation versus a volume-based get your information gathering process. So when it comes to making sure every person signs in, that's a volume-based approach. And then the vibes-based one would be, hey, no pressure, casual. And then if the rapport is built, then we're going to go for, hey, why don't you just give me your contact info? And while the latter, there are a lot of very successful agents that can make the latter work. Why not try both? Where you're making sure everyone signs in. And I'll actually give you one quick tip on using a QR code if that's what you'd prefer. But making sure everyone signs in and then still go for that rapport. And when it comes to making sure people sign in, you can use like a carrot versus stick approach where the stick is just, hey, the seller just needs to know who's coming through their property. If you wouldn't mind, just sign in here. If you don't want to ever hear from me again, just let me know. But if you don't mind, we also can send you new properties as they come on the market. And then the carrot-based approach would be, hey, we're trying to reduce waste at this open house, so we don't have any printed flyers. But what we'll do is as soon as you've signed in, we're going to text you all the details for the property and just make sure you use your real mobile number so you can get that text. And so usually some combination of that will get most people to sign in. And here and there on the margins, you might get someone who's especially grumpy and not willing to do it, and then you can decide what to do with them.
Yeah. It's funny. When we usually will have printed flyers there, and sometimes we'll have them hidden or we're out. And I would always just say, I'm the flyer, so I'm here. What questions do you have, right? Excellent. So we just talked about the sign-in process a little bit. What across the whole panel, what other ways can agents leverage tech when they're at the open house to streamline operations or to value add? I mean, I got a few ideas myself, but what have you guys heard across, if you have, what else can agents do to leverage their systems at an open house specifically to, again, increase lead flow, increase conversations?
You've got so many people out there that still think of an open house as just checking a box to satisfy your seller. And that's the first thing, So I'll answer the question. I just want to make sure that people understood that open houses have to be a lead generation pillar in your business, not and it can be if you think of it correctly. But in order to do that well, you have to use technology.
Yep.
And otherwise those leads don't go anywhere. The follow-up doesn't happen. So and I love the we'll send you the flyer. At real estate conferences, I can give away stuff and not get agents to give me their information. But if I tell them I'll give them a digital flyer, I'll get everybody's contact information.
So it even works. So you're saying it works. You're saying it works.
So I don't have a specific answer except you have to be using the technology. You have to have a way for people to sign in and have that automatically go into a CRM that has automated follow-up. Otherwise, you're missing the point of the lead generation strategy for open house.
Well, let me answer my own question. I set you guys all for failure on that one. So we leverage all of our tech that we pay for and bring onto the team as much as we possibly can to the client and the end user. So I'll give you an example, and it's a mixture of tech and super not tech. So we had a listing in one of our farm areas. We met a listing lead that came in an open house, and she generated the lead. We talked about the technology at that point was Real Scout, and I'm going to keep you on top of your home's value. You're talking about how important it is to have it down, to make your move and etc. So we leveraged the tools that we had to get the information in, kept her engaged, sold that house to somebody else, listed this house that she had. The buyer that bought that house came in off a sign, wasn't in the market, wasn't looking, not on Zillow, not on Real, nothing. Saw the sign, followed it to the house. His best friend lived 4 doors down. That one, and then he had to sell 2 houses to buy that house. It was 4 transactions from the first open house that we got in. So all these things work collectively when you leverage what you already have, right?
So can I just offer one other use of technology in the open house? Because you mentioned QR codes earlier. So, there's a lot of apps that do have QR code sign-ins. If you want to learn more about ours, you can talk to me after. But one very cool use case that I saw that an agent brought to us was, instead of making the QR code sign-in inside the property, paste it on the outside of the door, stick it on the outside of the front door, so it's the first thing people see. And in the text, you can have a template. You can do it on Canva. You can do it within our app if you want. There, you say, agent on duty, sign in here. And people will assume, this is how I get in. This is how I get into the property. Not only do you get their info without even having a conversation, but it's also a very good safety step, so that if you want to make sure who you're signing in and you actually want to call them to make sure they gave you their real phone number, you can do that and say, hey, okay, I'm gonna come let you in right now. So it checks out quite a few boxes in one shot.
Reminds me of a 2020 time with the one person in the house at the time, and you had to have them sign the form to come in, right?
That's where the idea was created.
Yep. So back to you then, AJ. Once you generate the lead, and I know your Kerber does a bit of this, but and everyone here as well, they get the lead. They hopefully get them into Follow Boss or their CRM, hopefully. But then after that, what we see time and time again is that the follow-up stops, and the conversation kind of stops at the open house, and then they're just sitting in your system, and they might get called once on Wednesday, which is well after the weekend, etc. What have you seen, or what advice can you help with to make sure those conversations don't stop happening once you have the information?
Yeah, so absolutely making sure they get into the CRM. And then it's up to the follow-up processes. You mentioned Real Scout. There's all kinds of nurturing systems, Street Text. We've seen that's where a lot of if you're going after the volume scenario, that's where the heavy lifting takes place. And then you have the right intelligence and telemetry built in to know when someone's re-engaged, if they've gone cold after some amount of time, and that's when you put them back on more of an active cycle.
I would say most people fail in follow-up because they don't know where to segment the lead. And so if somebody's just coming in to an open house, especially if you market it correctly, it could just be a neighbor that is nosy, that wants to see, what their neighbor did inside of the neighbor's house. And so if you don't have a way to either ask the right questions when they're checking in, or progressively profile them in a way that asks questions through the text campaign, then it dies, because you don't know what to follow up on. So is this just a person in the neighborhood that's going to end up on your weekly or monthly newsletter with market updates? Or is this somebody interested in buying? You're going to send them other listings. So you have to segment the lead up front, and you have to use technology to do that.
Okay. So after the open house, we talked about a little bit of nurture. So Steve, then what can agents do from an automation standpoint, a retargeting standpoint, a messaging standpoint, once they're in, to, again, just continue being in front of them, continuing, again, to provide value and be the agent they choose when time is right?
Yeah, well, I mean, every buyer or seller coming through has all these questions on their mind. And I think one of the easiest things to do right now is, you already know all the questions. Like, it could be like the top 10 things you should consider before you're selling your house, or whatever it may be. And so you can create these incredible resources or guides, and you can use AI to do all the work for you. It's so easy, and it creates these beautiful guides. And then you should take all of those guides and then put them in as retargeting campaigns. So again, as your lead comes in, or they're in the open house or whatever it is, now they're just seeing you all the time. And not only that, but you're offering them value. You're answering the questions that they have on their mind. And then each one of those guides should have, again, text messages linked to it. So as soon as they might be 2 weeks later or whatever it is, they download this guide because they're curious about, XYZ. or the curb appeal of their home or whatever it is, and now your text message re-engages them at that time again. So I think it's a really easy, very inexpensive way to keep in front of them on an ongoing basis without, like phoning them all the time. Kind of, subliminally, you're just there, omnipresent.
Okay.
Well, it also, based on what guide that they download, that's further segmentation of where they're at, either in the buying selling stage or just what kind of lead they are.
Yep.
Is based on what guide and things they're clicking on in the retargeting campaigns.
Just making sure we're not okay, Curtis. A lot of your users are using, again, neighborhood data, geo leads, geo targeting to build their longer term funnels and campaigns. Maybe it's around a farm they've been in forever, like us, or around an open house or a longer term listing. So what sort of underused strategy or underused tools can agents think about to, again, continually build their pipeline and, again, funnel traffic to open houses?
My answer to that is exactly what
Same thing.
was just said. It's the retargeting, and because you're retargeting at a smaller scale, the cost it's well, yeah, $2 a day, right? So for $2 a day, you can retarget people in a way that further segments, pushes them along, and if your CRM is set up for automations are set up correctly, then you have those the conditional campaigns based on the behavior that they're doing. So based on what they're clicking on, or what guides or what questions they're asking, and then the automation follows up with that.
Excellent. AJ, talking about back to the very top here, double data entry, talking about the sheet and versus the app. And again, there are a lot of open house tools out there. A lot of us, we use Curb Hero. It's a great platform. What does that allow? Like, what can agents do with that? To, like, aside from just putting them into the CRM, what else can happen when they automate it through a system like yours to, again, just make that lift on Sunday afternoon or Monday morning either easier or done for them entirely?
Yeah, absolutely. So, buzzword alert, we have an AI summary in our app. And so what we do is we take all of the natural language information. So if you are asking open-ended questions, if you're putting in notes, we do sync all those notes with the CRM, but we run an AI after the open house to then pull out all of the different information as far as who are your standout leads, who are the standout visitors. And then we feed that back to you. So, if hopefully everyone is going into the CRM and getting that longer term nurture, but that these 5 folks are the ones that you need to make a personal phone call with on Monday. So that is one way to leverage that. And then also just making sure that you are asking the right questions, time frame to buy, are you already working with it? Or actually, here's one from the very first session. Instead of asking, are you working with an agent? Ask, who is your agent? Because people will tend to be a little bit dishonest if you just ask them the yes, no, are you working with an agent? The marketing sensors will go off and they'll just instinctively say, yes, I am. But if you ask who, then they need to search a little bit more. So that's another good way to make sure you're getting quality data into your CRM, and then you're doing the right follow-up after.
Yeah. And that means, speaking from experience with Curb Hero that we've leveraged, the integration of Follow Boss allows us to, again, map all the fields over in with a tag, but we can also then automatically trigger KTS. Elena Key, shout out, wish you were here. Round of applause for Elena, by the way. Thank you. It triggers a long-term nurture. It triggers a text strip sequence, but then we're also able to add the property into Follow-Up Boss as an inquiry, which then Real Scout picks up to automatically create the search for similar homes in the area, which then I can tweak if we had a conversation. But all of that lifting is done when you automate out that manual data entry, right? So those are the things that the agent comes in Monday morning and it's, here are your 4 leads, call them. They've already been texted, they've already been emailed, they've already gotten properties from you. Just build the report at that point, right? Okay, rapid fire. Someone walked out of this room today and wanted to completely reinvent their open house processes for 2 weeks from now. Not this week, 2 weeks from now. What's the one thing they should start with? To take all this advanced stuff we're talking about, what's one thing they can do next week to improve their success?
So, as much as I would love to say that's Red X first, I would say if if you're not capturing people that come in the door, that would be the number one thing. But if I'm answering because of what we do, everything we do is top of funnel. It's about getting a massive amount of people to come in the door, so it increases your lead gen opportunity on the other side.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you, Curtis, for stealing my answer there. But one thing I'd say is just, there's a certain confirmation bias as far as do open houses work? Should I be doing an open house this weekend versus doing whatever else I would normally be doing on the weekend? And I think that they are definitely still one of the most underappreciated sources of business. They're so doing more open houses and just knowing that, there's still a lot of opportunity. It is a way to disintermediate the disintermediators. Most people 50% of buyers are going to open houses. Over 50% of the visitors at open houses are learning from them from the internet, somewhere online. So when it's just you physically there with a prospective buyer, this is like the purest form of sales right there. So all bets are off when it's just, you and your craft and your expertise and your ability to build rapport.
One quickie.
Yeah, then just to build on that, obviously on my side it's the ads, but I would say if you're not promoting your open house, you should definitely be promoting it, because even if they're not a lead, somebody might see it show up and then they fill out the form and now they're a lead. So yeah, I would say if you're not yet promoting, you should be. If the listings are sitting around a little longer, you got to leverage them.